Hi, everybody, and welcome to SideQuest 25 of High Scores, High Stakes, the podcast that thinks it's a smash hit, but it's actually a hidden gem. I'm your host, as always, Mr. Lava Lava, and with me is my co host.
Good evening, lover. How's things? How are we today?
Good, mate. Yeah, good. We're actually recording this at a reasonable day, at a reasonable time. Well,
Yeah,
semi reasonable
boy.
time. So it's all good. So it is all good. How are you, mate? All good?
Sounds. You know what it is? It's another day in the life of video game podcaster. We are talking games, not playing games, and just trying to stay ahead of the curve, I guess.
That's it. Yeah, just try to keep that conveyor belt of content rolling. But for those listening who have never heard of High Scores, High Stakes and don't know what we do here, High Scores, High Stakes in season is three friends who compete against one another in PlayStation video game challenges. Each week we pick a new game and we compete with one another in a league table in that game. Winner gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points, third place gets 1 point. But we are in our off season, which means that we are in our side quests. And side quests is where we talk all things PlayStation, all things video games. Every week is basically like a whole brand new podcast. Um, if you already know who we are and you follow the podcast, but have yet to follow us on any of our social medias, get yourself over to highscoreshighstakes.com. At the top of the screen, you will find a whole load of social media icons. Click on them, it'll bring you to our home pages. There's an icon for Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, as well as a little email us if you want to send us a message. Click on them and hit us up a follow on social media. If you have already done that and you haven't yet reviewed the podcast, please give it a star rating you think it deserves, whether it's a 1 or a 5 or any number in between. If you're feeling particularly generous, why not leave us a written review as well? And
And breathed.
with all the plugs out of the way in record breaking time, Tomahawk, in less than 5 minutes of recording, I get to ask you the question, what are you playing?
I've been back on Final Fantasy VII. Um, According to my PlayStation stats, I'm at 96% done. According to the in-game statistics, I'm on 50% of chapter 18, which from it's just a boss crawl and it's really, really doing my head in at the minute.
I thought you had beat Final Fantasy. And also when you said 96, I thought you were going to say ours. And I was like, how have you jumped up from like 20 to 96 in a week, you absolute maniac? I was never so happy to hear a percent in my life. I was like, how has he done
Yeah.
this?
I'm sitting at about 38 hours on this now, so I know chapter 18 is the last chapter.
Yep.
But this is what's been the beauty of playing this in like the modern era now. I'm going in this completely in the dark, so I've I've never been victim of a spoiler. I don't really know what to expect. I've met finally, like in person, we have met Sephiroth, but he is even yet to kind of reveal what his intentions are. He's just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna go do stuff, and Cloud's like, "Oh, well, we gotta stop him."
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Sephiroth is an absolute
Like,
baddie, like, isn't he?
wow, like it just even the I know the game in this version takes a few sort of liberties in how he's introduced in the game. He's
Hmm.
sort of gradually brought into the fray anyway. But his intro is just in the president's office. Oh, chills, absolute chills. I
He
thought it was
is.
he commands like this presence of the bad guy, and he's had like two lines of dialogue in 40 hours of gaming.
Yeah.
Like it's such a statement character, and yeah, long may that continue anyway.
Yeah,
So we're nearly there. We're nearly at the end.
yeah, he is a funny one because he is like he's no real physical threat, like, or he doesn't look it because he's not much taller than Cloud, and he's very slight in this. He doesn't seem very physically imposing, but it's his whole attitude and his whole mystique. He has this whole mythos around him because even in the early
Hmm.
game, he just appears in like sort of like half. You don't know if you're not sure if they're dream sequences or if he's actually like appearing to Clyde at the very start of the game.
Yes, that's
It's
it.
so so well done. They've handled him exceptionally well. He is so scary.
That's it. That's it. I mean, it's been such a great game. Like, yes, it's this last bit just seems to have this mad difficulty spike. So I'm trying to have to like redo a lot of things with different builds and different
Mhm.
ways that the other characters and their loadouts are. And we'll get there. Maybe next week I can announce that I've completed it and I'm moving on to something else anyway. But as it stands, we're still kind of trying to chip away at Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Anything else, or just Final Fantasy then?
I've downloaded Witcher 3 just to prep me for that. So that's just give me the little bit of a kicker to get Final Fantasy done so I can play something else for a little bit.
Play a short jaunt through what?
No such thing. No such thing as short jaunts.
No, there's not. Not in The Witcher, anyway, that's for sure. Um, this week I've also been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. I am
Beautiful.
miles behind you. I have played the original. I've never played the remake before. I think I've said that before in this podcast. Right now I am just at the bit where I've defeated the Airbuster. Um,
Hated that boss.
at the top of flipping number 5. Oh my gosh, that boss man. Um, in the original game, I don't recall ever fighting the Airbuster, but you do have a fight with Shinra Helicopter. And on my fourth attempt of beating this boss, I was like, I miss that helicopter. It is so frustrating because the last phase of it, when it's floating in the air, you can't use, like, I stripped it of big bombs in the way in. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
they'll be really handy. I'll keep it for the last phase. No, you have to front load with them. But if you have 3 of them, so it just takes away the first phase completely. Just pile drive it with with the big bombs, and then it moves on to the second
Exactly.
phase. The second phase is so frustrating because it moves out of your range, so you have to switch between Barret and Cloud an awful lot. Because I don't know about you, Tifa's class and all, but she's utterly useless in that boss fight because she's close range
Yeah.
and it's
Oh, yeah,
never in your
absolutely.
range. So I was flicking
No,
between.
even with Cloud as well, he has like one attack where he can sort of jump up in the air as well. And I found like like yourself having to just stick with Barrett, and I'm going,
Mhm,
I don't really think he does a great deal of damage unless you buff him with other materia.
mhm.
But yeah, it's a tough old boss. It
Yeah.
really, really was.
Yeah, I just used Tifa. I just put her in the corner, in the doorways, because she can't get hit there really, and just use her as a healer. Just constantly throwing high potions and mega potions at us, and we just tanked them. But yeah, no, I just finished that bit. I've met Aerith, and I have fought my way out of the
Uh-huh.
church. And that's exactly where I have hit save and went, I will see you some other time because I know this next bit of this
Cool.
game is going to be really slow and really quite boring because
Yes.
you're
There's a
bringing
lot to be
Aerith.
said about that. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that section of the game, to be fair. But maybe we have a subsidiary series we can talk about Final Fantasy VII.
Who
Maybe who
knows?
knows?
Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, that is literally my gaming week in a nutshell. Trying to progress in Final Fantasy VII. I'm really enjoying it, but it's such a big, dense game, and I don't know if I have time at the minute for big, dense games. But here we are. I'll chip away at it and see how it goes. So well, but that brings us on
Cool.
then, Tom, to our main topic of the show. In 11 minutes of recording, we are going on to our main topic. This is unprecedented sort of territory we're in right now. This might be a short episode, who knows? This week, what we are talking about after the big Debbie Downer of last week's State of the Games Industry chat, we decided let's uh let's make it a bit more cheerful this week. So what we were talking about then is we're going to bring it back to the PlayStation 1 and we're going to talk about like the hidden gems, the forgotten games of the PlayStation 1, the games that very few people or nobody in some instances talks about anymore. So we've picked a selection of games that we'll talk about and we'll try to get a wee bit of happiness back into high scores, high stakes. But I think I think we should get there. Now, mate, let's go. Okay, Tom. So this is our second PlayStation 1 topic in 3 weeks. Incredible scenes. It seems like we went a very long time without really referencing or talking about the PlayStation 1, and here we are, twice in 3 weeks. Our last episode about the PlayStation 1 was our PlayStation 1 draft. We did throw out the socials to see who people thought picked the best draft. And overwhelmingly, the public have spoken, Tomahawk, and they have declared you as the winner, the
Yay.
person with the best draft. On Twitter, we got 6 votes, and you picked up 100% of them. I think on Spotify, I think we got 4 votes, and you got 2 of them, I think. And then over on Instagram as well, it was an overwhelming majority in your favor as well. So you
That's it.
have
I think
officially picked the best draft team of PlayStation 1 games, even though I feel
that's it.
it's a false result. I mean, let's be honest here. You
Well,
said
I mean,
Die Hard trilogy,
Die
and
Hard.
everyone just, oh my gosh, what a hero. Let's ignore Love is top tier games.
You went too analytical. I went with the heart here. I went with what the people really want to talk about, and that's really, 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 really bad. Tie-in games.
Yeah. Well, Die Hard trilogy's fine. It's fine. It's only fine. The third game is really annoying. First game is really good, and the second game is my favorite. I think the second game is great in Die Hard Trilogy, the light gun game. But yeah, it is what it is. I've been robbed once again by our listening public. Darn you. One day they'll pick the right answer, and we can all celebrate knowing that we've all come to an agreement. But this is a podcast. It's not an echo chamber, Tomahawk. And what we're going to talk about today is hidden gems. I hate using that term, hidden gems, but it is the best way to describe this. Forgotten
Lesser
games.
spoken,
Yeah,
lesser spotted games. Yeah.
games on the PlayStation 1 that deserve a bit more coverage but never really get it from other podcasts. So let's fill the void ourselves, Tom. So I know you didn't grow up with a PlayStation 1 because you're but a boy, a cub. Um I did. I had a PlayStation 1 throughout its entire lifespan. I sort of subsidized it with the Dreamcast later on, but I have played so many PlayStation 1 games that it is frightening. It is one of those consoles where I think, yeah, it's great, but I would never like consider it one of the best consoles ever made. And then you start talking about it and you start looking into the library the PlayStation 1 had. The PlayStation 1 is an incredible console, and it very
Oh, yeah.
well could be, and it deserves to be spoken of with the like best consoles of all time because it's up there. It is up there, in my opinion. It's
No, no, you're
Dreamcast.
just right. I mean, like it's one of those you could put every game on Earth on that platform. Some won't stick, some do stick, and it's been a foundation for some absolutely fantastic franchises and some great studios to just project even more great stuff.
Mhm.
In the later stuff as well, like Naughty Dog being the sort of main example in that one. But yeah, it's a great. I think it has to be spoken of a little bit in a higher regard. I think the
Yeah,
PlayStation 1
yeah,
really does.
yeah. But I always see these YouTubers and oh, the PlayStation 1 was good in its time, but every game is aged poorly. That's just not true. I don't think anyway. Yes, there are some games that have aged really poorly, and that's literally just because it was developers just coming to grips with 3D gaming and what it meant and how to make them and all that sort of good stuff. But a lot of the games have aged well. I think most of my list are games that you could play happily today. Maybe one or two of them you probably wouldn't want to play nowadays, but they are worthy of a go in my opinion. But yeah, we haven't sort of decided on a number of games or anything like this. I know for a fact I have more games than you because I just have
Yep.
more knowledge and experience of the PlayStation. So if you want, I will start with my first game.
Yeah, crack on. I could just sort of pepper mine in as we go through this list. I do have a handful, but a lot of mine will be console or games I played off like the N64 or anything like that, and has had a
Mm-hmm.
PlayStation
A
port
one
at
port.
some point in its life cycle. Then, so it still counts as far as I'm concerned.
No, I would agree. It counts wholeheartedly. It counts. But yes, these are the games that don't get talked about enough from the PlayStation 1 era. And my first game is a game that I have definitely talked about here, definitely talked about before, and it's Future Cop LAPD. So, Future Cop,
Yes, I do vaguely remember you saying about this a couple of weeks ago now.
yep, I do remember. I might have mentioned it in the draft episode. I do remember this telling the story about renting it from Extravision and stuff. And you'll notice that that's a theme of all my games. These are games that I either rented a whole load as a kid or a game that had a demo, and I played the ever living life out the demo. So, Future Cop, for the uninitiated, Future Cop is an isometric 3D shooter. It was originally meant to be called Future Strike. But I don't know if you're aware of the Strike series, Tomahawk, are you? The Mega Drive games.
Uh, no, not at all.
So there was three Mega Drive games that listeners of a certain vintage will be knowing. I know exactly what Love is talking about. So the Mega Drive had three games: Desert Strike, Jungle Strike, Urban Strike, and they were like tactical helicopter shooters where you would have to open world and you have to complete missions to move on. This was originally meant to be Future Strike, was its original name, but the PlayStation had two Strike games of its own, Soviet and Nuclear, and they just weren't popular. So EA went,
Okay.
let's drop Strike from this name because that's dead to us now. That
It's
franchise
a
is dead to
flogged
us.
horse at this point. Yeah,
And
yeah.
it became Future Cop LAPD basically. But yeah, it follows the same sort of blueprint as the Strike games. It's isometric in viewpoint. It is brutally, brutally, brutally hard. And basically, you take the role of a police officer in Los Angeles, but instead of having like a panda car, it is a futuristic motorbike that can transform into like a walking mech of death and destruction.
Of course it is. Of course. It's so 90s, isn't it? This is
It's
like what the
so good,
90s
man.
thought the future was going to be. Like, this is, yeah,
Well,
this sounds
some would
incredible, to
argue
be
this
honest.
is actually a documentary of LA in the the mid 90s. But yeah, you're basically just trying to bring down a crime cartel, and it is amazing. It is such a good game. It is brutally hard, but it is such good fun. Um, it has so many things to make me want to recommend it. The campaign's really good. It's quite short, but it's really hard. I think it's only like 6 levels. It is really, really short. But you can play through the campaign co-op with a vertical split screen with a friend,
Okay.
which is really, really, really cool. You share lives though, if memory serves me right, so it makes it harder. That's how they balance it. There's two of you, so you're sharing life. Um,
Okay. Okay.
and then it also, now this is a lesser known thing, but Future Cop had a multiplayer like mode, and it kind of invented the MOBA. So it's basically
Oh,
the
seriously?
so basically the multiplayer is you versus another player, but there's like all these like you have to destroy the other player's like base, if memory serves me right. But your base is constantly making NPCs that would make their way through three lanes to the other player's base to destroy it for you. And your job as the player was
Okay.
to take out those NPCs and take out the other player and take out their base. So it's basically it's literally a MOBA, but in 1998, and it worked really well. Really, really
Unreal.
limited. I think if memory serves me right, it only had like one or two maps for the multiplayer. It wasn't very long lived, but yeah, no. Future Cop was awesome, man. It was awesome. I remember me and Sherry when we were younger. Every time we went to Extravision, we would rent this game, and we would play it the whole weekend. Bring it back on Monday, Friday. We come back around. We'd go straight back to
Go get it again.
if
Yeah.
it was there, we would get it again. It's an absolute blast. I wish I would love to see EA put together like a strike compilation of this nuclear and Soviet strike because they're three great games, and they've
Okay.
aged. All three of them have aged really gracefully because they're like isometric 3D. They still look really good. They control really good, and better. They just play really well. I would love to see that. It'll never happen because EA hates gamers and hates money.
I'm actually just looking at it as well. Just a quick review on it. It looks like it reviewed really favorably.
Mhm.
Now, Wikipedia does describe it as, you know, favorable reviews, but to me, a 9 out of 10 isn't favorable. That sounds pretty damn good, to be honest.
Mhm.
8.5, B plus 7, 7. IGN give it 8.3 out of 10. And then a lot of publications that didn't actually exist at the time give it non-applicable. So,
Yeah, I hate when they do that. They should travel back in time. Travel back in time and review games you weren't existing for. No, Future Cop LAPD is amazing. It is one of my favorite PlayStation 1 games, and I never hear anyone talk about it. Never. You will never see a YouTube video about LAPD Future Cop. Never.
Until today.
Until
That's it. So
today,
we're starting a
baby.
new. We're rebranding. That's what it is.
So what? Yeah, give me one of your games, mate.
Right, let's go. I've gone for the more lesser spotted one, and there's some reason I can't. Again, we'll talk about the whole. I never grew up with a PlayStation One, and I was a Nintendo shill. But the less said on that, the better. 40 Winks Conquer Your Fears. For some reason, was a game that in my research for this really, really, really stuck out as something that is massively just memorable to me, and for reasons I can't really understand or comprehend. It just is like a really bit of a bonkers platformer. You
Hmm.
play two siblings who are basically it's what a child's interpretation of the scary nighttime is, and you
Yeah.
have to kind of just go and traverse a whole bunch of worlds, and you get different costumes, and they give you different abilities. It had a very from what I was looking at, this is very akin to Spyro the Dragon and Banjo Kazooie. It's kind of in that sort of catchment area for player base at the time in that demographic. So I just remember looking at a couple of screen grabs for it and going, I remember this. I don't know why I remember this, but it reviewed pretty well. I think everyone did quite like the theme for it. It was like quite nice, jazzy, upbeat music. Had a pretty decent premise. Um, I think it just was one of those ones. It wasn't pushed as well as Spyro would have been at the time.
Yeah, it was a multi-platform game as well. You may have played it on the 64. It definitely was on
Well,
Nintendo 64.
you say this. I did Google this. Apparently, it was meant to due to come out for 64, but was canned
Console.
prior to release
Ah.
until Pico Interactive launched a Kickstarter to release the Nintendo 64 version in 2019.
I remember this. I do remember this. I remember this game. I never liked it. I remember it looking really good for a PlayStation 1 game. Like it looked great. Um,
Okay.
my younger sister bought that game for when she got a PlayStation 1, like the smaller one. It came with 40 Winks. I just remember it being super boring. But she loved it. She played it flat out all the time. I just remember it looking absolutely beautiful. If memory serves me right, your two main characters, boy and girl, both wearing like Victorian sleeping gowns and night
Yeah.
hats. Yeah, yeah,
One has like a candle holder, and that
yeah,
can like deal damage to enemies, and the other one has a teddy bear as their standard weapons. So
yeah.
whatever that they maybe he throws the teddy bear. I'm not 100% sure on that
I'm
one.
pretty sure
And
they
again,
just swing them.
that's it. And then it was just like you go through multiple worlds. Each level you collect cogs, and it's
Hmm.
kind of part of this like dream machine or whatever it is that
Yeah,
seems to be giving people bad nightmares and stuff. And it's purely progression based, that you unlock levels based on the cogs you collect, and each level has a
yeah.
set amount of cogs to get. It seems like it's that kind of mid to late 90s. There's a platformer, here's a item that you have to go and collect as many as you can,
Go and
go
collect
beat the
these
boss.
jiggies.
Exactly,
The
exactly.
rare stuff.
um it just seems that it probably is. It's one of those franchises, or a single entry at this point, that just kind of got lost in the mix of much bigger and much stronger entries at that time, really.
Yeah, yeah. It would have come out around about the same time as like Croc 2, I think. Maybe
Okay.
one of the 3D Gex games as well that were better than it, in my opinion. But yeah, no, good game. It's an interesting one. I do vaguely remember the Kickstarter because it came on the cartridge and stuff, but you could also get a digital version to play it on PC if memory serves me. I don't know if it was ever successful. I doubt the game
I
was
think
big
they
enough.
moved the PlayStation. I do think they moved the PlayStation port onto Steam quite recently for it as well,
Yeah,
and there was talk. Like, just again, as I'm doing this sort of fleeting research on this as well, there was supposedly a Game Boy Color port for it as well,
good lord.
which never got made or never got released, and apparently someone discovered like the cartridge or whatever for it somewhere, and they were like, "This runs terribly."
That's why they never released it. It was a bad game.
Yeah,
I love that. 40 Winks Skid Art. As I said, my younger sister loved it way back in the day.
just something different. It was just one of those ones like that. There's an image, and I'll send it to in chat, and then we'll fire it up onto the video of this podcast episode anyway. But it just something about it stuck out, and I was just like, that is a game why do I remember that? But there we are.
Mm,
It's made it
interesting.
on.
Interesting. I always thought it had a 64 port even way back when, because I do remember reading about it coming for the 64. Maybe that's what it was. But yeah, no, 40 Winks, decent. Yeah, good, 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 good. Not my style of game at all. My next game is, well, I actually thought it was a launch title for the PlayStation, but apparently it wasn't. It was a launch window title, so it came out in like December 1995. And I remember
Okay.
this is another one of those games that it had a demo, a playable demo on Demo 1. That was the demo disc that came with the PlayStation. And it is Load It. So Load It, don't get me wrong, Load It reviewed pretty well back in the day. And it was like a really, really, really fun game. So basically, for the uninitiated, Load It is a top-down 3D shooter. Like if it was released today, it'd be a twin stick shooter. But obviously,
Yeah.
the PlayStation didn't have any sticks, let alone two of them. So it's basically really, really adult in inverted commas. It was loud and it was really gory. And basically, you picked between one of six characters, and all the characters were weird. So one of them was like a big fella who dressed in a baby grow. I can only say mama. Another one was like like a crazy clown. Another one was like a Wild West skeleton guy. And basically, what it was is go into the level, kill everything that moves, and move on to the next level, and then do it all again. So it's like work like Doom.
Okay.
If you'd imagine, kill a lot of people, pick up cards. Those cards would open up certain doors, continue the level, and then fight a boss and move on to the next level. Yeah, it was really good fun. I mean, it was one of those games that when was that? What age was I when the PlayStation came out? Like 12 or 13, and it was just this game where you could shoot people's arms off, and when you shot them they just left a big trail of blood behind them. It looked when it released, it looked really good. Like it had a whole load of like lighting effects, like there was flashing lights, there was strobe lights. I just remember it looking really, really, really good. Really good fun. Again, fully co-op, so you could play it with two players the whole way through the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Really, really difficult. But the biggest criticism I could launch at it was, I think there was 15 levels in it, and by the time you hit like level 8 or level 9, it wore pretty thin. Like you were just doing the same thing every single level, and
Yeah. That aesthetic has run out.
there wasn't enough variety in it. But it was one of those games, if you just played 2 or 3 levels a day, you would have a lot of fun with it, as long as you didn't just try to marathon it, which is where you'd all the sort of issues sort of highlighted themselves.
Okay.
Apparently, it was based on a comic book, or it got comic books. One of the two. I can't really figure it out. I do remember a comic for this game, and I think it was like, was it Black Horse Comics, Dark Horse Comics? And there was like
Yeah. Yeah.
6 comics, and just one for each character. I do remember this, but it was really good. It got a sequel in 1996, and it was called Reload It. It looked way better, but the game just wasn't as good as this one, because the levels were so much bigger and emptier, and it lost a lot of its aesthetic, because a lot of Load It happens inside like factory type buildings, which is really good game, really good fun. So it is, and yeah, really funny. The music was absolutely crazy good in it as well, like brilliantly good. So as I can still hear the theme tune in my head for this
Oh,
game.
really?
That is
Okay.
how much I played this game. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. What a sidetrack! Brilliant, brilliant. But yeah, Load It, a launch title pretty much for the PlayStation. It looks dreadful by today's
Yeah,
standards.
I'm looking at the I'm just again looking at the title box for it as well. Just see kind of
It might have the clown
generic
guy in the
figure
cover. Mhm.
holding the teddy bear with a gun. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Weird
It
game,
just looks
man.
bonkers. It has this kind of like nearly like this twisted metal vibe looking.
Yeah, it would be like Twisted Metal meets Smash TV, is be the best way to describe it.
Oh, okay, okay. It looks mental. It's one of the it'll probably have been one of those ones that if that was in our household, my parents would be like, "You can't play that. That's got guns in it or something," and I'd be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
yeah,
okay, well there we are."
yeah. If memory serves me right, the baby character was called Mama, and just as you're running through the levels, that's all he would say, and like a baby voice. Really weird, really good. Load It. Not enough people talk about Load It anymore. Retro YouTubers fix it.
And did that I take it that got one sequel, and then after that just kinda got this, like,
Yeah,
weird meta, fan following more than anything?
yeah. I think the sequel to it was called Reloaded, and it just wasn't as good. It was much more colorful, brighter. The levels were much more sparse. They did try to put in a bit more variety into it, but it wasn't reviewed as well. It didn't review as well. I don't think it sold very well at all. And I can't remember who made it. I want to say Gremlin, but that could be completely wrong. Um, yeah,
Gremlin Interactive, yeah. Yeah.
yeah. They just decided, nah, this isn't a franchise that's gonna persevere. So let's bin it, and they binned it. Some would say no great big loss. I say Load It One is unreal. Good game. A really good game. I like it.
Fair.
I like it. What's your next one, Milt?
Let's have a look then. So this one is a later port on the PlayStation 1. This actually was originally a Nintendo 64 exclusive.
Boo.
This is Mission Impossible. Yeah, this is
Okay.
the video game tie-in to the 1996 uh, movie of the same name. Um, now, I genuinely love this game. Playing it originally, like was essentially the plot of the first film. It took a few liberties with levels and level design and stories and some of the missions and stuff, and it obviously had just extra bits to flesh out and add a few extra mechanics and stuff like that as well. I remember being one where there's like Ethan is on this boat, but you play as the machine gun that it has to provide cover fire,
Oh, yeah, all
and
right.
he's doing all this.
I just had this image of your player character being an actual machine gun, and Ethan Hunt just run down the corridor, and you have to aim him.
That would be much, much better, to be fair.
That would be. I would play that game. You could call it Machine Gun Kelly.
So, yeah, they like flesh out the game as much as they can. The problem you sort of have with this game is that, again, when it was being developed and it was released, it was so closely compared to GoldenEye.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what really annoyed a lot of the developers. Like, there was so much apparently that they wanted to incorporate in, and then they were like, "Oh, but GoldenEye does it, so we're gonna have to strip it out now." So they wanted to use. Do you remember in the GoldenEye they had the pause mechanic was the gadget watch,
Yes.
and so Mission Impossible wanted to do something similar to that, and then they saw GoldenEye and were like, "Oh damn, right, that's strip that out, strip this out." Apparently there was a ton of stuff that they just couldn't do, and because they were oversold and overestimated the actual processing power of what the N64 was
Yeah.
capable of, so much to a point that apparently the game ran at 4 frames per second. So,
Incredible. This is not the first game to do that in the 64. No, I remember this
well,
game
that's it.
being all right and only all right. I don't remember much of it. I didn't play much of it. I think I played a demo of it, and it was literally the come down the ceiling through the lasers. I think that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that was it. That's it. That was a really quite nice and iconic level. I do remember. I think I found a way. Basically, there's certain levels, there's certain laser colors that tripped automatic game over, whereas some of them I was just like, don't care, full send down the down the corridor.
Mission Impossible.
But like, it's like it's one of those ones like purely nostalgic. I sat there was like, I really enjoyed this game, and again, it falls victim to James Bond, 007, that kind of stuff. Those movies were just so popular at the time, and Mission Impossible being a rehash of an older TV series, just kind of probably didn't have the same grip at the time. Um, it then did get a later PlayStation port, and I think it was quite favorable review wise on that front then as well. But I quite liked it. I just think again probably doesn't get spoken about because
It's a movie tie-in.
GoldenEye. Let's face it. Yeah, it's a movie tie-in.
Yeah, yeah, that happened a lot during that era of games coming out really close to like a really similar game, and some would
Yeah, yeah.
say a much, much, much better one. My next game is one such game. So it is.
Oh, I do want to say there is one big laugh about this just before we do move you on as
Hmm.
well. Apparently, Viacom, the studio who
Hmm.
produced and made Mission Impossible, apparently they went to Nintendo and basically said, "We want you to strip out a load of the violence. We want you to strip out a load of the gunplay. We also don't want you to like heavily reference the plot of the movie. Oh, and also Tom Cruise doesn't want to lend his likeness to the game, so
See, I always wondered why the character Ethan Hunt didn't look like Tom Cruise. So they were just like,
apparently the
no.
studio just went, all right, there's the title. You've got the title, you can use elements of the plot, but don't use the same plot. And also, Tom Cruise doesn't want to be in it.
I wonder if this game came out before the movie and they're worried about
And they didn't want to
spoilers.
spoil anything, right?
Yeah, I wonder if it was projected to come out before the movie, which is just like just push it back. Who cares if it's ready or not? But yeah, no
Well,
Mission
that was it.
Impossible.
Yeah, some of the other stuff was like they said they didn't want to release a subpar product, so that's what kept delaying it and delaying it. So I would imagine, well, Mission Impossible came out in 1996, and this
Hmm.
didn't come out till 98. So I'd
Oh,
imagine
good lord.
but this thing that I would say that there probably was a issue of spoilers, and then the devs just went, well, no, we don't want to release a product that's not ready.
Yeah.
So they've just went, well, don't alter the story, just make it ready.
Yeah, I suppose if it came to the point where it's come out after the film, like, well, the movie's so far gone, just make your own like original sort of story. It's
Parallel,
weird.
whatever. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really random. I can't believe that. I honestly, as I said, I've never really played it. I've only ever played the demo of it. I do remember the reviews being middling on it. Like a lot of review outlets were like talking about bugs and stuff like that on it. But yeah, no, it always looked fun. It always looked fun, and it's Mission
yeah.
Impossible, man. Even in '96, Mission Impossible was cool as all hell. So
Exactly, exactly. I love a good tie-in. I don't care what anyone says. I love a good movie tie-in to
so do I.
any game.
I like a good tie-in. The days of movie tie-ins are long gone. No, now they don't just don't seem to happen anymore. Bring it back. That's why I say bring back shovelware. So, but yes, my next game is a game that followed the same similar sort of fate, where it was a, in my opinion, it's a fantastic game, but a much more popular one came out a few weeks after it. So my one is Speed Freaks, which came out in September '99, and then a few weeks later, Crash Team Racing came out, and everyone forgot Speed Freaks ever
Yeah,
existed. But Speed Freaks is a kart racer, um, that's much closer to Mario Kart in sort of format and structure than what Crash Team Racing was. Where Crash Team Racing was more about a story, Speed Freaks doesn't care. It's just a racing game. So you basically have
exactly.
three cups to play for. Well, they're called leagues. If memory serves me right, there's easy, medium, and hard. But basically, the only thing it changes is the aggression of the other drivers and the speed of the carts. So hard
Okay.
is just like 200cc basically of Mario Kart. So it's Mario Kart in all but name. The graphical style is very Nintendo, or it's more like Sega, where everything is big, it's blocky, it's bold, it's colorful. It's that classic like Sega Blue Skies sort of game. The characters are all massive heads, tiny hands,
I
no
do
arms,
know this
no
game.
legs, and the carts were literally wheels and a steering wheel just to save on processing power. But this game was awesome. Again, it's a game I played almost exclusively in a demo and rented it a few times, but it was so much faster than Crash Team Racing could have ever hoped to be. It was amazingly good. It was so good, and it had four-player split screen. It had the whole heap. It was a fantastic kart racer that just didn't have enough content. It was a bit bare bones, but it was so good.
Just looking at it, yeah, this really, really looks familiar now. But again, is this one of those things that these games we're picking are just victim to like being made at the same time as Naughty Dog? I see Crash Team Racing has
Hmm.
released roughly around the same time,
Yep.
and it's already jumped onto a well-established franchise. So this just kind of gets snuffed out, really.
Yeah. I mean,
This
yeah,
seems to be the theme of the night, really.
yeah. I mean, yeah. This game was just bad timing. Mission Impossible was probably bad timing as well. But to be fair, here's me sitting complaining about everyone who went out and bought Crash Team Racing. I never owned Speed Freaks because I owned Crash Team Racing.
course you did. You're part
But
of the problem.
I'm part of the problem, love it. But yeah, no, I think Speed Freaks doesn't get talked about enough at all. It is the second best kart racer on the PlayStation 1 after Crash Team Racing. But if you're looking at a Mario Kart style kart racer, you would go for Speed Freaks over Crash Team Racing. It just was too
Okay.
bare bones. There just wasn't enough game there, I think, as well. But it reviewed really, really well. I think it got. I remember official PlayStation magazine giving it a 9 out of 10, and I remember Games Master magazine giving it like an 8.5. It reviewed so well. It's a really,
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 really
really
well,
good
yeah.
game. It looks gorgeous for a PlayStation 1 game, even still today. It's a really distinctive looking game. It looks really good, really good. But yeah,
It's so funny, like looking at random bits like this as well. It was like even having Jamiroquai sort of used as the
I've,
intro
yeah.
title song as well. It's like just you don't get stuff like that anymore just for like marketing and this like brand association as well. Again, it was delayed to avoid competing with Crash Team Racing, but I think once Crash is out first, it's kind of hard to.
I think this came out before Crash. I'm pretty sure Crash Team Racing came out in like October that same year, did it not? I'm pretty sure it
Sony
did.
acquired the rights to publish the game in the region as early as the summer of '99, but held back as to avoid competing with Crash Team Racing, so it
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
necessarily
Maybe my
state.
memory's wrong. Just okay.
Oh, yeah, so it released in Europe in September '99 and then North America in April 2000.
Yeah, yeah. I knew. I do distinctly remember thinking about buying Speed Freaks and then going into the game shop and seeing the advert for Crash Team Racing. I went, I'll wait for that one.
I'll have that, please.
I'll
Yep.
have that. Crash Team Racing was so good though, man. But too many people talk about Crash Team Racing and not enough talk about Speed Freaks. Speed Freaks is amazing. Justice for Speed Freaks. I would love it if Sony just threw it onto PlayStation Plus Premium.
Yeah,
Like,
that's it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised going and like the classic stuff that they have. It's not out of the realm of possibility to see it brought in, even just as
mhm.
is a straight port. But
Yeah, it
there we
was.
are.
Yeah, no, good game, good game. What's your next game, mate?
So I have. I'm just gonna. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. It's Hercules. It is the lovable platformer. Another tie-in as such. Uh, Pretty really difficult if I remember correctly. And
Yep.
I was genuinely watching gameplay of it, and it's had the lovely 16-bit sort of version of the soundtrack playing in the background. Hercules is jumping up, grabbing all of his energy drinks. All of the snazzy catchphrases are just being shouted at you as you go about the level, and then next thing you know, they introduce like 3D like depth into the level. You can sort of go into like
Yeah.
the midground and the background of stuff.
hmm
I'm sitting there going like, this game has no right to be doing this, and let alone how am I supposed to have known that that was going to be a thing as I'm playing it in real like back in the day.
It kind of give you the hints though, doesn't it? Because you have to collect like, is it 3 Tarzan tokens every level, and sometimes they'll be pushed into the screen and sort of to
Yeah, there's
guide
like coins.
you or
There's
something.
coins like power drinks, and you have to find like the Hercules letters and stuff as well. So it probably was like massively flagged. But when did it come out there? Just 1997 came around the same time as the movie. So
hmm
I was 6. So you tell me if I'm ever gonna figure that out.
Good lord, no, probably not. But I remember this era of Disney games being really good because Hercules was a really good game too, and so was Tarzan. Tarzan's and
Yeah,
those two games are underrated as all heck as well. But yeah, Hercules. I actually forgot there was a Hercules game,
just
but now that you said it, I can remember the cover for it. It was him fighting the Hydra.
I was
Cool.
talking to Mrs. Tomahawk about this prior to record, and she's just like, we were looking at the YouTube video of like the long play,
Mm-hmm.
and there's the boss fight of Hercules fighting Medusa, and it's kind of on this like circular
I
sort
with
of
rotation.
arena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even she was like going, I don't remember any of this. Maybe we were just bad at games.
Maybe, but just sounds pretty far in. The Disney games it was made by Virgin, wasn't it? Virgin Interactive.
Uh-huh.
Those
Was I?
games made by Virgin were no mugs. Like, I mean, all their games are hard. Like, they made The Lion King, they made Aladdin, they made The Jungle Book, they made this, obviously, and they made the Tarzan game. They're all really difficult games. Well, quite
Oh yeah,
difficult.
absolutely. Well, like I watched Adam Blank. Remember the game? He did a Lion King episode a while back there. I'm watching him on stream play it. I'm going, and you're a grown man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like that's hard. I'm watching him kind of rage quit nearly
Well, yeah, I
because
mean,
the the hitboxes nearly have to be perfection. I do vaguely remember that back playing it, that everything had to be so precise, otherwise
mm-hmm.
you were falling or dying or getting hit or something like that. It's so
Yeah,
terribly hard.
yeah. I mean, The Lion King was made purposely hard. I think the guy, the Disney sort of coordinator for it, was like, yeah, no one can complete this in a weekend. Type thing, the sort of combat
Oh,
rental.
that's right. They
They
basically
made it
wanted everyone to be renting it
purpose.
over multiple.
Yeah,
Okay,
they made it purposefully super difficult. The buggers.
unreal,
Disney. But yeah,
unreal.
unreal. What a game. Hercules. What a game.
Nobody
Actually,
talks about it. Nobody
it was
talks about
gorgeous
them.
as well.
Yeah,
Like, it
yeah,
was
yeah.
a really lovely mix of like 2D forward slash 3D animated sprites on top of the 3D world. It was gorgeous. All those like Virgin
I
Interactive
think
games
that
were
that
lovely.
Aladdin and Lion King had just like they properly just plucked the world from the
Hmm.
movie and just put it into this like 2D side scroller
Yeah,
platforming with
unreal.
3D element in it. It was really, really good. Really, really like timeless, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, and the animation quality as well. Obviously, Virgin always pride themselves in their high quality animation. I think Aladdin has the most frames of animation in a character on in a Mega Drive game,
Oh
which
wow.
is yeah, it's ridiculous, ridiculous. But yeah, Hercules, what a game, what a game. My next game is another game that got overshadowed by a similar game and a better game, and this one is Thrasher presents Skate and Destroy, which was, of course, overshadowed by Tony Hawk Pro Skater in
Of course it
1999.
was.
I think my memory of these two games is Tony Hawk came out in October, this came out in November, so a month apart, and Tony Hawk beat this one to the punch. And the one looked twice. It's a Thrasher Skate and Destroy. This was a game I played the life out the demo. It's also a game I bought, and I remember for most of 2000, my play rotation on the PlayStation was either this or Tony Hawk Pro Skater. So, yeah,
Okay.
they are the same sport. Let's be honest here. They're both skateboarding. But Thrasher is nothing like Tony Hawk's, where Tony Hawk's is this like fast paced 2 minute runs, high score combo challenges. Thrasher is like if you think skate, where it took a much more like simulation approach to skateboarding to try to emulate
Yeah,
what
yeah.
it's like in real life. So basically, every level in Thrasher Skate and Destroy is a sandbox, and when you go into the level, the timer doesn't start, and you can skate around the level, and you can sort of formulate where you want to start, the lines you're going to take, and how you're going to beat the high score. So the scope of it is go into a level. Here's a score you have to beat to progress the game. And you can just sort of skate around and just sort of practice your moves. The control scheme's really weird for it. Really, really difficult. And you can just plan your lines and plan your tricks. And then when you're ready to start, you just hit select, and then the timer starts counting down. Um, it looked
Okay.
it looked really cool. It's the first game I ever remember having ragdoll physics when you crash, and the ragdoll
Oh,
physics
serious?
were pretty cool. But yeah, the whole game was really good. It didn't look as good as Tony Hawk's, but it had its own distinct look. Everything was very chunky. If you think like WWF No Mercy, where everyone's
Oh, right.
big and
Okay.
thick and chunky,
Like blocky. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
looked like that. Looked really good. The soundtrack was amazing on it. So Tony Hawk went for contemporary sort of lesser known rock acts, where this one went for really, really, really popular 1980s hip hop. So you had like
Oh, so they
Grandmaster
probably
Flash
paid for
and
a bigger license then. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and the music in this game is unreal. This game is really difficult, obviously, because the control scheme and because it's much more realistic. You have to retrain yourself from Tony Hawk to play this. Once you get it, it was incredible. It's like Skate. You could just do some great lines, and
Okay.
the best part of it though was when the timer gets down. I think it was the last 20 seconds, maybe the last 10 seconds. Um, the police would come and they would begin to chase you around the level. If they
That's
catch you,
cool.
your run's over. and whatever score you have is what the score is going to be. But when they come, the viewpoint changes and it goes into you view the world from the police's point of view as they chase you. You don't control them. You're
Well,
still in control of your skater, so you can try to outrun them. Yeah, what a game, man. What a game.
that sounds great. Just saying, because obviously, like, I'm just sort of rabbit hole in this as you're talking. So
Hmm.
Thrasher, like the actual like brand, so
The
that's already
magazine,
like a well
yeah.
established, yeah, skating, like that's well associated with skateboarding in the States and stuff as well. And just yeah, if you could attach a name to it, then why not make it something that is
Perfect.
as close to you've got like Tony Hawk's obviously for Tony Hawk, and then yeah, it's handy with competition, but then yeah, just as I'm reading it, it seems that the learning curve on this game, I think, is what sort of drove people away, possibly. Whereas Tony
Absolutely.
Hawk, I think it's a lot very skill based, but you can just pick it up as you go. You
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to like plan your routes as heavily as from what this sounds.
And practice it. You have to practice it. It isn't like a pick up and play game at all. There is a really steep learning curve to it. It's a fantastic skateboarding game. Nobody
Okay.
talks about this anymore. There was like this. There was a game called Street Skater, and there was Tony Hawk's, and they all came out roughly the same sort of time. And obviously, Tony Hawk was so far and away better than both of them. But this one was a good second. It was a fantastic skateboarding game. It looked good, it played well, and it had enough uniqueness to it. If memory serves me right, it had like a multiplayer suite as well. I don't think I ever played it because Sherry could never get his hands around the controls. So I was playing by
Okay.
myself, but it was just a fantastic game, man. It's I've never ever heard anyone talk about Thrashers getting destroyed, but it was a really cool idea for a game and a really good game. It just was overshadowed by Tony Hawk and the actual financial might of Activision to advertise Tony Hawk. Because don't forget, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 over here was not called Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It was called Tony Hawk Skateboarding because they rightfully thought who in the UK and Europe has ever heard of Tony Hawk? So it was called Tony Hawk
Aye, that's it.
Skateboarding. So this is Tony Hawk and he skateboards. Whereas Thrasher,
Interesting. I've just read. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say Thrasher, even over here, even in the UK, Thrasher was a well known skateboarder magazine.
Yeah,
It had
it
much
still is.
stronger.
Like you see it, you still see the brand, and I see the T-shirt. You see the T-shirts and the track bottoms and everything. Now it's
Yeah.
like it's big thing again. All of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
I'm rabbit holing from this here now as we're going about like lesser known games, especially
Yeah.
in the extreme sports, quote unquote. Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX.
What a game.
Like
What a
I
game.
remember playing the Dave Mirra 2 on the GameCube. So, just having to backtrack slightly on this one. Who doesn't like a BMX game? And again,
Was
it had that kind of like great
was
wee soundtrack associated with it too.
was Dave Mirror the one made by Activision?
That was made by Acclaim.
Okay, so that BMX game came from the ashes of Thrasher Skate and Destroy.
Oh, okay.
So it did. Now the Activision had a BMX game as well. I just cannot remember who the BMXer was in their game, but their game was Tony Hawk's on a bike, whereas this one was Thrasher Skate and Destroy. Only they took all the criticism of the controls and toned it down to make it much more like approachable for new players. But yeah, what a game that is,
Okay.
man! It got two or three. It got three sequels because the last sequel for that was BMX Triple X on the GameCube, PlayStation 2,
Oh,
and
right.
Xbox.
Yes. That's right. It did. Yes.
Remember
So no,
that
I
one?
I distinctly remember Dave Mirra 2, and it's just one of those ones that anytime that we had a GameCube or well, got one secondhand, Dave Mirra just always somehow appeared in like a CEX or in a secondhand shop, and we just always got it, and it just always had this like fun appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I'm gonna fire Dave Mirra BMX the first installment as a honorable mention as well.
Oh, okay. Okay, I've got quite a
Because
few.
skateboard doesn't own the monopoly on extreme sports games, and I think we need to break this news
It does
for
though.
25 years later.
It does though. When was the last BMX game? Tomahawk. When? It was probably BMX Triple X, for goodness sake.
It was probably 2002. Yeah.
It was Riders Republic, wasn't it? That had BMXs in it. That game. I've got quite a few honorable mentions. I'll just rattle through them. These are games that made my list, but I just couldn't remember enough to be able to confidently talk about them. So I thought, okay, honorable mentions where we can talk about them in a very brief way. So my first one
Okay.
is RC Stunt Copter. So RC Stunt Copter is a really, really, really weird game. So it's basically a flight simulator on the PlayStation 1. But
I do know this. Yes.
but rather than playing like a fully grown helicopter, you use your dual shock controller and it mimics the handset for a remote controlled helicopter. And the whole game is just fly through these lips, shoot these targets, hover for 30 seconds, or, this sort of stuff. It's just like bog standard things that you would probably do with a remote control helicopter. But do you wonder what? It was really bloody good. Really, really, really good fun. Basically, it was just do these level challenges and do it as fast as possible in order to build up your score and then beat the top score to go on to the next level. One thing I will say about this game is it was a simulator, so it was brutally hard. Like I remember you had like different tiers of helicopters, and the beginner tier had like a harness, so if you crashed it, it wouldn't destroy your helicopter to give you more attempts at doing stuff. Really, really
Okay.
good game, and it's one of the few games I honestly think so because the Dual Shock, you use your left analog for left and right, and your right analog for going up and going down and stuff like that. It did mimic like a real life remote control helicopter remote control. I would dare say that
That's
game would
cool.
make you a better pilot because
That's it. It's interesting to see rather than like have the game suit the system to have it suit specifically the controller. I think
hmm
that's something that's kind of mad thinking about it. Like you can you can push the processing of the PlayStation 1 however whatever game you wanted that, but to sit there and go, you know what, we're actually gonna like emulate what a remote control feels like, but we're gonna use the actual remote control of the system to do that. I think that's really a bit of a stroke of genius, to be fair.
it's quite good. They've obviously took the lead from Sony because I think this came out in 2000, and if memory serves me right, Ape Escape came out in 1999. And Ape Escape was exactly the same thing. Ape Escape was designed around the controller in order to sort of push dual analog sticks as a way to push forward the game
Okay,
industry.
yeah.
So if you remember Ape Escape, you couldn't play Ape Escape without the Dual Shock or the dual analog controller, which is another thing people don't talk about. Before the Dual Shock, there was the Sony PlayStation Dual Analog, which was the same controller, no vibration functions. But people don't remember the dual analog controller. Everyone just talks about the Dual Shock.
Is that the one where you could turn off the analog sticks? There was like the
Had a
center, like
wee
the middle button
red
had.
button.
Yeah, 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 and you could just turn it off if you didn't want to use the analog stick. I imagine doing that today on the PS5, just going, I don't want to use
I
analog sticks anymore.
I think some older PlayStation 1 games it caused issues with them. So like launch titles couldn't recognize the analog sticks as inputs. So they put that on so in order to not make your old games unplayable.
Oh, okay, okay.
I believe that was the thought process behind it. I also have memories of a controller coming out where you could turn off the vibrations by pushing a second button in the middle of those sticks, but that could be something from a fever dream. I don't know.
I don't like my hands are shaking. I don't know like it.
I don't like this. I don't like it at all. A controller should be seen and not heard.
I feel as if this is like a weird thing in like Footloose or something. It's like a priest bans PlayStations because the controllers are the devil or something.
Too suggestive. There's no N64s in this town. Kevin Bacon. How will I play Mario 64? You don't.
They just throw away every Rumble pack ever made.
Here's 40 winks. Right. Do you have any more honorable mentions? Because I have a
Dear.
few I can rattle through.
No, you crack away. I think I've listed all that the research time I allocated has permitted me to say.
Well, we're not doing
So
so badly.
you
So
take the reins on this one.
I only have like three or four more. The first one is Omega. My second one is Omega Boost, which is one of the lesser spotted games from Polyphony that isn't called Gran Turismo. so so Omega Boost was basically like this really fast-paced 3D mech shooter,
Okay.
and it had this like really really good story as well. It was like really anime, but it was so fast, it was so good, it was so addictive. It looked unbelievably good as well. It is one of the best looking games on the PlayStation. I think it has an argument for being the best looking game on the PlayStation. Omega Boost was
Yeah.
unbelievably good.
It looks like Armored Core.
Yep.
It really has like this sort of FromSoft Armored Core vibe.
Yep. Yeah, it's just an amazing game. Plus, you know a game's a classic when it gets mentioned in an Eiffel 60 song, Eiffel 65 song, mate. It's a classic. It's an absolute classic.
I've just had a quick look at this and just the Wikipedia entry is brilliant. It's like Omega Boost is currently the only non-racing game developed by Polyphony Digital, whose work comprise almost solely on racing simulators.
Yeah,
It's like,
they had another game on the PlayStation that was a racing game, but not Gran Turismo, and I want to say it was called Motor Toon GP. It deserves a
dude,
shout here as well because it was awesome. It was awesome as well.
yeah. You do it. You go with what you know, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Sony were like, "Yeah, you're really good at that racing game, Malarkey. Stop making that space shooter thing." If memory serves me right, if memory serves me right, it looks amazing. It sounds amazing, and I think it ran at 60 frames per second on the PlayStation. If memory serves me right, because I think that was a high frame rate game. Because I vaguely remember at the back of the box it saying high frame rate. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot. There was a lot of games on the PlayStation One era that ran at 60 frames per second.
Yeah, yeah.
So there was most
It's
of them.
incredible.
It's just an incredible game. Polyphony are just geniuses. They're just technical masterminds. I've never seen a company be able to eke out as much from a console as those boys. They're just unbelievably
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
A luxury developer for sure, but what a luxury to have. But the next one I want to mention, mate, is a fighting game, and it isn't made by Capcom. It is Bushido Blade. So Bushido Blade, there was 1 and 2 on the PlayStation, and they're really, really awesome fighting games. Basically 1v1 weapon-based fighting games, but it took the realistic approach to things. So it was very slow and it was a very tactical fight because if you made a mistake and you got hit by your opponent's sword, it could cause your arm to get cut off. You could get decapitated. They could cut your legs off and you just
Oh,
bleed out.
okay.
It is literally a fighting game. You can win or lose with one move. Really good game. The first one's really rough around the edges. I mean, graphically speaking, the fighting system's incredible on it. But the second one looks a million times better, but plays slightly worse. So
Okay, okay.
pick your poison. The best fighter of the two of them is Bushido Blade 1. The best looking one is the second one. But yeah, really good games. Really, really, really good games. Just
I've
really
never
like
heard of that one actually, to be honest.
I just remember it being great. Just remember it being great. Really frustrating, but really, really fun. It was basically sword fighting in the game where you could riposte and block a lot and stuff like this. Really good.
Oh,
Like fencing.
this is a square game, so it's going to be very Japan, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, very much so. Um, my next one couldn't be any less Japan though, because it is Hogs of War, and I believe I've talked about this one too before. It is basically 3D worms with pigs. It's just a turn-based strategy war game. Teams of 4
Uh-huh.
pigs face off against another team. Really, really, really good fun. And really, really funny because the commentator on the game is Rick Mail.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Okay, brilliant,
it is a
brilliant.
really, really, really good game. It looks rudimentary as all hell today, but I remember this game being brilliant. Brilliant. There was also another game on the PlayStation called Team Buddies. Same sort of idea, only the players look like tablets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then my last two, you'd be glad to hear. First one is a game called Music, and it's like expansion pack Music 2000. These calling these games
Okay.
is probably a stretch. They weren't games; they were music suites where you had a drop and drag interface where you could create your own music inside the game, like dance music.
Yes, I think a friend of mine's brother owned this who like
Yeah.
thought I think this is in the sort of vein that he thought himself like a Kevin and Perry Ibiza DJ and was just kind of
Yes.
like, yeah,
Yeah, they were
I'm gonna
quite,
get this game.
as Grandpa Simpson would say, this sort of like music creator was this fashion of the times. It was the style of the times because there was loads of them. So you had music, you had a couple of other ones on PlayStation, but the big one, the market leader, was a PC game called EJ. So you had like dance EJ, hip hop EJ, and it was the same sort of thing. If memory serves me right, and the listeners can correct me in the comments if I am wrong on this, Judge Jules made one of his songs on Music 2000 and released it commercially. He definitely features on the front cover of Music 2000 with songs created by Judge Jules. But I vaguely remember reading that he made one of his songs in this game and released it commercially. So,
That would
music,
be quite impressive.
music, and Music 2000, I remember them being ridiculously impressive for what they were, ridiculously impressive for what was primarily a PC only genre. And Codemasters made it. Codemasters.
Okay.
And they just pulled it into PlayStation. It was brilliant. I think we owned it because my older brother also thought he was a Kevin and Perry style music DJ. But it was a great game. So many samples. I'm sure it's rudimentary as all heck nowadays, but it was great at the time. Music and Music 2000, brilliant games. And then my last one is everyone loves Prop. You've heard of Proper the Rapper, haven't you?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the spin off, Jammer Lamy?
Of
It would.
course not.
I bet you if you look it up, you'll know it. It's basically you play a sheep who is the guitarist in a band and wakes up one day with her apartment on fire and then realizes she only has 15 minutes to get to her rock concert, otherwise her band will abandon her forever. And it is just as wild as Parappa the Rapper is. The music in this game is incredible. It's dropped rap and it has instead created like rock, guitar driven rock, and it is
How does
so,
this look like it's made from Microsoft Paint?
because it's
How does that just
it's Parappa the Rapper, man.
Yeah, I know, but like how does it look?
It looks so good.
Ah,
It's actually aged amazingly well, I think, because it's so distinctive looking. So distinctive
fair
looking.
play.
The levels are absolutely insane as well. Like the first level is you wake up, your apartment's on fire, the fire brigade come out and they rescue you, and then you pick up their fire hose, and then that's when the music starts, and you are playing the guitar on their music hose. There's one you're in a plane, you're going somewhere, the plane starts crashing, and you jump into the pilot seat, and then you are playing guitar with the airplane yoke. And then the most random one is you meet I think it's a, I want to say cow. Don't quote me on that, but she can't get her babies to sleep. So Jammer Lammy picks up the baby and starts playing guitar on the baby to get them to sleep. Random, great stuff. If you like Parappa the Rapper, you'll love Jammer Lammy. It's much harder than Parappa the Rapper is because it
I'm
actually
gonna have to
demands
check
you.
this out.
It's so good, so good. No one talks about it anymore. I don't think it's ever been re-released, whereas Parappa the Rapper has been re-released on every PlayStation console since the PlayStation 1. It has been remastered and the sequel's been remastered, and they have totally left Jammer Lamy in the halls of obscurity, and it is better than Parappa the Rapper, and it's better than Parappa the Rapper 2, in my opinion. It's a
Is
just,
it because it's like a spin-off or something and they've
I don't
basically
know.
got more chips in?
Don't know. I'm presuming it
Proper
didn't
the
sell
rapper.
too well, and they're probably going, is there a market for this? Yes, there is, Sony. I will buy it. Put it on PlayStation
Rhythm
Plus
rhythm games
Premium.
are rhythm games are back in now. This is the thing. You've got like with like Hi-Fi Rush and everything sort of being
Yeah.
out right now, and Necrodancer and everything. Like, why not just if you were to put that in like as a classic collection or something, or even just
fire
you
it
know.
as it is onto PlayStation Plus Premium.
Yeah,
I will buy Prop the Rapper, Jammer Lamy, and Prop the Rapper 2 in a pack. Sell me it, I will buy it. It's a good game. It's a really good game. It is a really,
yeah.
really, really good game. But that brings me to the end. There are so many other games I could talk about. I mean, my list was crazy long. Like just going on memory, I could have talked for days on the PlayStation One. There's so many more games, but let's give the listeners something to talk about. Question of the week is going to be: what is your underappreciated or lesser known PlayStation One game? What is your favorite one of them? And tell us why. Tell us why. And then I don't even know. Is the PlayStation what to pull the week? What is the greatest console of all time? And we'll put the PlayStation in against three others and see what the people say. People say it's better than the 64. That's for
Cool.
sure. It's better than the
Too
Saturn
right.
2.
Damn straight.
It's not better than the Dreamcast though. It's
You'll die on that hill. You're gonna
the
die
only
on
of
that
its
hill.
contemporaries that can beat it is the Dreamcast. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this. Tom, PlayStation 1's just a great, great, great console.
Do you know what though? I originally, when you had suggested do this, I was like, oh god, I can't really, like. There's only such a finite level of conversation I can have on the PlayStation One.
Mhm.
But no, I'm actually, like, the more I'm like looking into it, the more I'm talking about, the more I'm starting to like remember stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, nope, actually, you could talk about this console to death. And here we are. What's that, 20 odd plus years later? We're still talking about it, and it's still as relevant, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
30 years. 30 years this year. If you go by
30 years,
the
yeah.
Japanese release, 30 years for the West next year. It's madness. I still remember the day I got my PlayStation 1. Like it was yesterday. I'm an old man, Tom. And on that note, I am making my way slowly towards the inexorable death, march towards death. So we better get the wrap up section done before I expire. So let's get to the wrap up section now, mate.
Let's do it.
That is it. Tomahawk, another episode all wrapped up. PlayStation 1, I think we can probably draw a line under it. We will revisit it in some capacity in the future, I have no doubt, as Sony keep on putting PlayStation 1 games on PlayStation Plus Premium. Who knows? Maybe even PlayStation 1 games make it into the main seasons with challenges and stuff like that. PlayStation 1 is honestly, I would never have considered it one of the best consoles ever made. Talking about it with this podcast, yeah, it's up there for me, up there, big
Yeah.
time, big time. But yeah, so let's do our housekeeping one last time. If you want to find us anywhere else on the internet, go to highscoreshighstakes.com and you'll find little links to all of our social medias. There's Twitch, Twitter, Discord, YouTube, Instagram, the whole heap. All we logos, just click it and it'll bring you straight there. If you haven't reviewed the podcast, please do give it whatever star rating you think it's worth. If you want to leave a written review, that's even better. And if you want to share the podcast with family members or friends who you think might like it, feel free. Is much, much, much appreciated. And with all that being said, Tomahawk, I don't think I've forgotten anything, have I? I feel like I have, because this has been a significantly shorter record than usual.
No, I think we've ticked all boxes there. I mean, the only other things are maybe game of the month, but I think we're doing this thing where we're going to keep it sort of separate, but still announce episodes as and when they come up on the socials.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
but
that's a good point. So our next episode for Game of the Month, it's nearly July. It is July by the time this goes out. It will be officially July on release day of this, 1st of July.
yeah,
Our next episode, we announced for Game of the Month Club, we announced it in March. Believe it or not, we still haven't done April's Game of the Month Club episode, and it is
no,
on
no, April's game of the month will be out as well. Yeah.
it is
This is how the
Bloodborne.
future works.
Yes, it is Bloodborne. It should be out before this one, so if you've missed it, take a look in the feed and it should be there. It is a good one. Bloodborne, one of the best games ever made, in my opinion. But yeah, check it out if you haven't already. May's Game of the Month Club is incoming really, really, really soon as well. It is. I don't think we've announced this, have we? We haven't announced this.
Not officially, but I would have announced it at the end of the episode of the Game of the Month
Bloodborne.
episode.
If you want to know what May's Game of the Month is, go listen to Bloodborne episode.
time
It's
travel's weird, isn't it?
isn't it? I don't like this, Tomahawk. I don't like this. It's Spider-Man 2. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one too. With all that being said,
Incredible.
Tomahawk. With all that being said, all that's left for me to say is I've been Mr. Love Lover. This has been High Scores, High Stakes. Thanks for listening. See you Monday. Love you all. Bye. Tom hit the microphone. It took till the end, but there we go. That's your weekly microphone hit from Tomahawk. Bye, everyone.